Hey you guys, I am back today to share with you guys my thoughts on the new Natasha Denona I Need a Warm palette. I did end up picking this one up. We're gonna test this thing out today. I'm planning to do 2 looks with this palette. We're gonna take a look at it up close, read some of the reviews and description about this. There are some new formulas that we are dealing with here. And then we're gonna go through some palettes that I already have from her and see if we can see some overlap in the palettes that she's already released. There's 3 in particular that I wanted to take a look at. So we will do that towards the end of the video. And hopefully by the end of it all, you guys will have a better idea of whether or not this is one you should skip over. So let's get into it. I have a feeling this is gonna be a longer video. Before we do that, if you are new here, I wanna welcome you. Please consider subscribing to my channel and make sure that your notifications are turned on. But with that said, let's get right to it. Okay, so I have not opened it yet. This is just the outer box. So let's do it together. Here she is. Very interesting packaging. Actually looks very, very similar to the I Need a Nude right here. It's a little bit darker. You can see the like geometrical pattern on the front is a little bit different. Let's have a look and oh, okay, interesting. So I was thinking this might be warmer looking on first glance than it's looking now. It does look warm, but it doesn't look orangey, like not like bronze palette level orange, copper. This is definitely more of a neutral warm is what I'm kind of seeing. Just looking at it, very pretty. I'm not gonna lie. This looks exactly what I wish the bronze palette might have been like. I mean, maybe not. These aren't really bronzes, they're more nudes, but lots of lighter shades, and that's always been my complaint with that palette. So I'm going to insert for you guys right here a close-up of the palette, along with these swatches so you can see how these look swatched next to each other. Haven't actually swatched it yet, but I'm assuming it's gonna look very pretty just by looking at the packaging. Now I wanna go into her website and just read what the description says about this palette to kind of explain some different things that we have going on in here. It says, this warm-toned nude palette features 6 matte, 2 metallic, 1 multi-chrome, 2 sparkling foiled, and 1 duochrome finishes, complemented by 1 brand new ultra smooth slip cream matte and 2 high foiled matte gloss formulas. Okay, you had me at slip cream matte. That sounds delicious. I cannot wait to like dip into what shade that is and try that one out. We will definitely be trying that formula out today. It says Natasha's world-renowned eyeshadows blend effortlessly with one stroke payoff for a vibrant, flawless finish and user-friendly application, which I would agree with. So it does look pretty. I'm very excited about this one. This shade is so interesting, this kind of multi-chrome. Like depending on where I look at it, it looks kind of yellow, and then I lift it up and it looks kind of reddish orange. I used to love these types of shades, kind of like mermaid scale, multi-chromatic shades. I feel like they're a little bold for me now. I don't know what happened to me over the last couple of years, guys. I feel like I just am changing and growing into a boring old woman. But I kind of feel like I should try that shade out today just because it is kind of unique. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm not really even certain what I want to create yet. We will use that multi-chrome. There's some other beautiful looking shades in here that I'm very curious to play with. We'll definitely play with that slip cream formula and that other new, I can't remember what she called it, one of her new shimmer formulas as well. I'll point those out as we get into the palette. So let me go ahead and zoom you guys in and we will start off with look number 1. All right, you guys, so I've got all my other makeup on, obviously. I will link all of that down below for you. So we're gonna start off the first look. I'm gonna do the duochrome look first. I'm actually not that excited about this duochrome shade. I just don't know that it's a shade that I'll probably reach for that often, but I just got done swatching this palette and everything else inside here. Oh, so pretty. So many beautiful shimmers, but we're gonna kind of get that duochrome look out of the way first. I'm also gonna save this cream, not creamy matte, what is it called now? The slip cream formula down here. It felt so nice. It felt a lot like her old cream to powder formula, but even more kind of slippery and creamy. I cannot wait to play with that one. I think we're gonna save those. We're gonna save that for the second look. Let's just jump right in. Why don't I start up here in the corner? This is the shade Ripe. I'm gonna use my Persona blending brush today, and we're just gonna throw that all up in your crease. I'm sorry. I feel like I say that phrase a lot though, all up in the, and I feel like I should say it with a different accent because it's just one of those phrases that needs to be said differently. Okay, now I'm gonna take the back side of that brush, the apply side, and same shade, we're gonna run that under the lower lash line. Really pretty kind of peachy, just like a soft peach. There were a few shades in here though that I did feel like, okay, I've seen, maybe not this exact shade before, but maybe something similar. I'm guessing that I'll be able to find a couple close matches within some of her other palettes. I'm just taking a little bit more of that same shade and just building it up right on this outer half of the lid right here. So the 3 palettes I got out to try and search through were the Yucca palette, the newer Golden palette, and also the Bronze palette. I was thinking that the Bronze palette would probably be the one that we would maybe find the most similarities to, but I'm actually not, I'm kind of rethinking that. This is not as warm, nearly as warm. I mean, this shade is quite warm, but as I was swatching it, I was thinking this is not swatching as warm as I was imagining it might be, considering that it is called the I Need a Warm palette. This shade particularly, which is probably the most orangish shade that I swatched, does lean a little in that orange direction, which I don't mind, but all right, let's stick with those really warm shades and go directly underneath. This is the shade Fervor, also just a regular matte. These are both just normal standard matte formulas. And this one we're going to build up kind of on this outer half of the lid and just up through the socket. Same on the other side. Okay, so these 2 shades definitely are pulling a little bit orange. Again, I don't mind that. I kind of like a really warm orangey tone, especially if you can top it with, as we are going to, one of these 3 deeper browns that they lean a little bit more cool. I wouldn't call them cool, neutral. I guess I should say they're just true neutral deep browns. It'll kind of tamp down some of that warmth, which I love. I love a bit of warmth peeking up beneath something a little bit darker and richer. I know I say that a lot, but in case you're new here or have a poor memory, I don't know. I'm in a mood today, you guys. Laughing at my own jokes. Why don't we do that now? Let's add a little bit of depth. I want to let's take this shade in the middle, Vim, back with that smaller side of this double-sided brush, which I love, by the way. It's such a good brush. I think I have all of the Persona brushes. This is definitely my favorite. They sent me these brushes, but if I was going to repurchase some or recommend some, it would be this one. This is just a fantastic do everything in an eye look kind of brush. Love that. Very cozy and rich, warm. Makes me think of like fall leaves crunching beneath my fall booties. Now let's dip into that multi-chrome. I said duochrome, it's actually not a duochrome. This shade is a duochrome, this is a multi-chrome. So it has like red and green and yellow, kind of bronze in it all at once. Very interesting. It looks so green to me and so red to my camera. It's blowing my mind, it's so strange. So we're gonna tap that all over the center of the lid. I guess if I turn sideways, you'll probably get more green. All right, and now, let's see. I have written down on the back of my box, I had to write down, there's initials for what each of the formulas are. There's so many formulas in each of her palettes, and they're not all the same formula. She seems to come out with a few new formulas with each palette lately, so I had to write them all down. So let's see, let's try out one of these sparkling foiled shades. Why don't I go with this one? This is the shade Elm, which just looks like a very kind of standard champagne. I love a good champagne. Use my finger for this. Actually, why don't we do this? Why don't we use my finger on this eye? And then I will try a brush on the other eye and just see how it applies using those 2 different versions. Okay, I love that. And it really helped to kind of like tone down some of that multi-chrome, which I know is probably not the idea, but I like that there's still a bit of that multi-chrome kind of out here. But I don't like it all the way across my eye. It just is a little bold for me. That is so, so lovely. Oh dear. Really did not want to fall in love with this palette, but I'm not gonna say anything definitive yet. I still am thinking I probably have similar shades in my collection. I don't know that this is the most super unique. So it's just 2 little layers. I didn't add much that first dip to build up a little more. Okay, it applies really well with the brush also. If you guys can see that. Nice, nice formula. Tap a little bit in that inner corner as well. That is lovely. Okay, so that's probably where I'm going to stop for this look. Very, very pretty. I'm gonna add just a little bit of liner. It's just my Wet n Wild liner. Not a lot, just a tiny baby wing here at the outer corner. Just to kind of emphasize this smoky kind of effect I have going on there. Okay, and now throw on a couple coats of my Pat McGrath mascara. Then I'll show you guys how the look looks all finished up, and then we'll wash it off, come back, and we'll do it all again. All right, here is the first look finished off. So we've got the duochrome. It can be really hard to see that duochrome effect on camera. It's one of those things you have to kind of like be in person, in natural light especially. I think it's when it's really more noticeable. It's not quite as intense as I was thinking it might be on the eye. When I swatched on my finger and kind of moved my finger around, it's very shifty. It's not quite as shifty on the actual eyes. I mean, it definitely is, the shift is there, but it's not so strong, which works a little bit better for me. It does have this very strong kind of red shift to it, depending on kind of what direction you're looking. So it's obviously very warm. I would say that for this look, I use the warmest shades in the palette, the warmest mid-tone shades, the warmest shimmers on the eye, and the warmest brown in the outer corner. Still very wearable for me. I would definitely wear a look like this. But this is what this first look looks like. I'm gonna go ahead and wash it off now. Then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna try out some of those other colors, maybe more of a cool tone look, and try out that slippery matte. All right, back for look number 2. For this one, I wanna start off in this shade right here, top center, Mellow. This looks to be about, maybe a touch darker than my skin tone. I'm curious how this is gonna show up on me. It's just barely showing up, so it's a little bit darker than my skin tone right now. Very nice kind of warm nude. Okay, then I'm gonna dip into this shade in the top corner. This is Soft Spot. Last time we went with this one. Now we're gonna go with this one. Looks a little bit darker, a little bit more cool. Again, we're using that Persona brush. And we're gonna run this one just right in that socket there. Oh, that's a great shade. Beautiful. It is definitely less orange or less warm than the other one, more of a neutral. Okay, I'm gonna go with the back side of that brush, that same shade. We're gonna run that along the lower lash line. And let's go all the way, almost all the way in. Really kind of shape out this outer corner. Now let's jump over to this corner shade. This is the Slip Cream that I am dying to try. So usually I like using kind of a denser brush with her old creamy formula. Let's try this one on the back side of this Persona brush. Just see how it will apply. This one's it's not my most dense brush. This we're just gonna tap. Oh, beautiful. That's nice. Very nice. Just look at that easy blend. Same on the other side. That blends instantly. I mean, you put it on and just kind of swirl it around a little bit and you have a perfect blend. That's a nice formula. I love that. It's nice and dark, but it's not too dark. So pretty. Okay, let's add, I really wanted to take the shade Pep. What I'm gonna do with that, I'm gonna take a liner brush. Let's use this one. This is also from Persona. We're gonna use the line brush. We're gonna dip into this shade Pep, which is just a dark brown matte. And we're going to kind of line with this. Just right at the lash line. Kind of from the center out. All right, and now let's add some shimmer. So this is where it's gonna be really tough to decide. I really wanna try one of these Metal Gloss shades. So these two shades right here are the Metal Gloss formula. And then we have a duochrome here and a sparkling foiled right here. Let's go with the duochrome. This shade Dynamism. It's kind of like a brown with a silver sparkle. I don't know, I wouldn't call it cool tone, but I also wouldn't call it warm. I don't know, it's just like a neutral brown that has a silver sparkle in it that makes it appear a little bit more cool tone. So pretty, beautiful. And I'm gonna do the same that I did before, where I'm gonna apply that same shade on my other eye with a brush, just to see how that applies using a brush. This is just the Angie Hot and Flashy brush, by the way. Now I've got to try this shade right here. This is the shade Homey. As I was swatching this palette, this one instantly caught my eye. It kind of reminds me of another shade from the I Need a Nude palette that the formulas seem a little different, but the shade seems somewhat the same. We'll test those out later, but I think we'll go beautifully with that Dynamism shade that we already put on. So there it is right there. It's kind of a champagne taupe silver. Has some silver sparkle in it. Has some like light nude brown, almost a little pink toned. It's just lovely. It's beautiful. Stunning. Maybe one of the prettiest shimmers I've ever used. Other side with the brush. And again, this is the metallic gloss formula, which I think maybe new. Actually, that might not be a new one. I think the only brand new formula in here is the slippery matte. What was it? Slip cream matte. Gotta layer it up a little bit more using a brush, but it's still really pretty. Now, just because I want to use as many shades as possible, I would probably stop here otherwise. Let's dip into this shade at the top, the shade Fancy. Again, kind of just a basic champagne. This one is a metallic. Take that on a little fluffy brush, actually. And we're gonna pop that just right on that inner corner right there. This brush looks dirty. I did just wipe it off, hopefully. Got enough of that dark brown off of it from the last time I used it. There we have it, you guys. There's the second look. Just a slightly different variation of the first look that I did. But I love it. I love these just very leaning, warm types of looks. They're perfect for, I would say fall, but really any time of year. You can never go wrong with like a warm brown, nude, kind of slightly bronzy look. So once again, I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of liner, just my Wet n Wild liner. We'll just do a little baby wing. Then I'm gonna add a couple of coats of my e.l.f. Lash and Roll. Then I'll come back and I'll show you guys the finished look. Then share a couple of final thoughts, compare it to a couple of palettes, and then this video will be all done. And here we have the finished look. It is very beautiful. I realized as I went to put my eyeliner on that I already had liner on from the palette itself, so I just ended up adding a little bit of liner to my waterline. But I love how it turned out. My final thoughts on this palette. It is very beautiful. However, I don't know that I would say it's the most unique color story I've ever seen. If you have a lot of neutral palettes in your collection, I mean, I've got so many neutral palettes in my collection that may not be duplicates for this on their own, but probably have some similar looks within them. I would definitely say don't go into debt over this one. I mean, I would say that about all makeup. Like, don't go into debt over your makeup. Something probably all of us know, but maybe should be said every once in a while. I would most recommend this one for those of you that are only into neutral shadows. Maybe you do not have a large eyeshadow palette collection. Maybe you are just getting started in makeup and looking for a good place to start and don't mind spending $69 on an eyeshadow palette. This would be a really nice one to start with, I would say. But for those of you that are maybe on a tighter budget, you have a lot of neutrals in your collection, you probably could live without this one. I do love her finishes. I love her sparkles, but is it worth $69 every 3 months that she releases a new palette for? Maybe not so much. Okay, so I was just trying to think of like a couple of palettes that remind me of this one. I ended up grabbing the Dreamy Dozen from Lawless. I love this palette, and looking at it, it like doesn't look anything like this palette I just opened up. But really, if you like get rid of this bottom row right here, like it gives similar vibes. You get some similar, a little bit of overlap in this one. I'm not really gonna compare them side by side to each other, but I do wanna go in and just kind of try to match a couple of these shades to some other palettes that I own from Natasha Denona. This shade right here, which I mentioned I am wearing on my inner lid, the shade Homey, beautiful, beautiful shade. It did feel a little bit different than the shade that I'm thinking it might mimic. I'm particularly thinking of the I Need a Nude palette, the center shade Muse. Okay, so here we have Muse. Oh, also so beautiful. And then here we have Homey. I'm actually thinking that Muse might be slightly more pink in tone. They are very similar. Not exact, but man, you guys, very, very similar. Let's just compare the dark shades. Shade Silhouette, this is the dark brown in the I Need a Nude, to kind of like a dark purpley brown. Let's compare that to the shade Peep that I used as my liner. It has a little bit less purple in it, but quite similar. This one's a little more brown. This one has a little more of a purple tone, but similar. So that's probably it for this palette right here. Let's jump over to the golden palette. This one I'm kind of curious about because again, I feel like there might be just a touch of overlap in a few of these shades right here. This center shade Teak, I'm wondering if that's, it actually does look a little bit warmer than Soft Spot, which I loved. I loved this shade. It's the first one that I used in my crease. For this look, I absolutely loved it. So here's Soft Spot. This is in the new I Need a Warm palette. That is Soft Spot. Let's see how it compares to Teak from the golden. It is slightly more brown. But again, would you run out and buy a whole new palette just for that subtle difference? I don't know, maybe this is helping you guys just if you were feeling like a little bit of FOMO, I absolutely need to have this. I think it's wise to just kind of take a look at what you already own and just see if, do you really need it? I mean, do you have these shades other places? Because I think 9 times out of 10, if you've been collecting makeup for a while and watching YouTube videos for a decade or more, you probably have a lot of the same things over and over again. Okay, I'm curious about this shade Nubia. I love this shade in the golden palette, and I'm wondering if there's, okay, yes, I actually think those are somewhat similar as well. Okay, so here we have Nubia. This is from the golden palette. And then this is the shade Snug from the I Need a Warm palette. The formulas are a little different. I think Nubia is more of that, it has a little more glitter in it. Sorry, I have a scar right here, ignore the scar, but if you can see those two shades, I know my lights are making it difficult to see, but they're quite similar to each other. This one's just a little bit more sparkly. Let's check. Okay, that's definitely more golden, the shade Kava. And the formulas are different, but I'm looking at the shade Fancy. See those two right there? This one's a little bit more sparkly. It's more of a drier kind of glitter topper shade. This one's more of a true kind of rich metallic, but they're kind of close, you know, not dupes, but close. Let's do one more. So I'm wondering if the shade Ripe, that was that first kind of more kind of peachy toned, orangey toned that I used on my, where to put this one? Let's go right here, shall we? So this is Ripe. Let's try the shade Flesh from the golden palette and just see if they're similar at all. It's a little lighter. Flesh is just a little bit lighter, but they're close. So let me open up my Yucca palette. I'm thinking the Yucca palette probably, actually there's not, there are no duplicates in here. I forgot how green toned this palette is. I actually do love this palette for fall, but it's quite green. Like there's a lot of green in there. Let's look at the bronze palette. This one definitely leans more orange in tone, but let's see if we have any crossover in here, particularly with any of these shimmers. I'm wondering, maybe this Dynamism shade here, running out of room. So here we have Dynamism. Let's see if that's close at all to Palladium down here, which I think looks quite a bit warmer. Let's check. Yeah, this one's, actually I was thinking Dynamism looked warmer. It has actually more of a red base. This has more of almost a cooler base. Those aren't super close, but let's check the shade Push. I didn't use this shade today, but it looked very pretty. This one, there we have Push right there. And then let's check that to the shade Silk in the bronze palette. Okay, those are very, very close actually. Those might be the closest that I have found yet. Very, very similar to each other. So not dupes for everything, but there are some crossover shades that mimic each other, maybe not even in the finish, but at least in kind of the appearance and the color. So hopefully that gives you guys a better idea of whether or not this is the palette that you need to run out and buy, if it's something you need to add to your collection, or maybe you don't. Maybe you can skip over this one. But I would love to know, is this a palette you guys are interested in? Are you getting burned out with the constant releases, especially from a brand like Natasha Denona? I love her palettes, but I'm starting to feel a little bit of burnout, and I'm kind of feeling that way with makeup in general, which is, I've talked about this recently before. It's a bit of a dilemma as someone that does this as a job on YouTube. I still do and always will love makeup, but sometimes you almost get to a point where you feel like, I have enough. I really don't need any more. Either way, I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know down below. I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't done that yet, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. I want you guys to be part of this. Look at that mirror. Love that. Taupe, it almost has some pink in it. I don't know, maybe not pink. It's just so beautiful. It's kind of like a mix of brown and gray, which is taupe. Mandy, over explaining all the time.